Welcome to Better Than Broadway, where we have a very special guest today. We have Gus Langley, actor, comedian, and I just fucking learned this. You're an avid D&D player.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Dude, so am I.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, dude, we did I
I've
worked
got my box of dice and a cigar box right here. It's
Oh
dude, I
yeah.
worked on a show. We did over 100 episodes, and that's the longest I've ever gotten to play one campaign, and it was awesome.
awesome, dude.
Cool.
Right on. So everybody, this is Gus Langley. He is an actor on the movie that I'm producing, The Virginia Bitches. And when we were on set, I learned Gus is not just an actor. He's a versatile human being. But we'll get into that later. Gus,
Yeah,
welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for hyping me up, man.
Of course. So Gus, give us, just so because this is a pro wrestling show. Give us your background, your involvement of pro wrestling.
All right, yeah. So like you said, I'm an actor and a comedian, but I think of myself just as a performer. I tried to dip my toe into like every corner of entertainment, and I was a huge fan of wrestling as a kid. And as an adult, I was like, why am I not doing this? So at one point, I had a couple of auditions where it would have behooved me to be a better wrestler, and I was like, all right, I'm not doing that again. I'm gonna go get good at this. So I went and auditioned for a school in Vegas and trained there for a little while, and trained on my own for a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, I dipped my toe into the wrestling world for a little while, and I think that I'm a better actor because of it.
Well, I think one of the things that I love about pro wrestling is that it literally is improv, which that's a huge part of acting as well. So
Dude, that was the first thing I learned. I was like, okay, put the mic in my hand and I'm comfortable, but the physical stuff is no joke.
yeah, dude. So
Who
when
doesn't
you're
love improv?
right,
The best.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Oh man. Uh that's what I think people don't realize is like the people who are like really good just let it rip. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's easy in this day and age to think that everything is scripted because so much is.
Well,
Sometimes it's not.
As a fellow D&D player, like there are moments where you just have to improv and go because that's something you didn't plan on. Like as a DM, I'll plan all this other stuff, and then I'm like, we're going here, and the player's like, no, we're going that way.
Man, and the plan can be good, but the deviation from what you expect is where the magic happens. You know what I mean?
So guys, tell us about what was your training like when you're in Vegas?
Okay, yeah, I trained at FSW, Future Stars of Wrestling, and it's a cool spot. They got a lot of great people there. It back in the day, and Sin Bodhi used to he told us this. He was like, "Oh yeah, my first day at wrestling school, nobody was allowed to leave until someone quit.
Yeah.
We all got ran ragged until someone quit and went home, and then we were allowed to leave for the night."
So it sounds like everyone's just starting to
intense
look at each other like, who's it gonna be?
Yeah, right. I'm about to call a friend and tell him to come join, and just so they can quit so I can go. But yeah, so it's not like that anymore. Everybody was very welcoming. It was still tough, but everybody was, everybody gets that we're there because we all share a love of something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Gus, the one thing we ask every guest that comes on the podcast, I'm sure this is asked on every podcast, every pro wrestling podcast, but who would you say is your favorite wrestler of all time, and why?
Man, this is probably a giveaway, but I think there are a lot of legitimate answers to that question. for me personally, it's Scott Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the bad guy. The fact that somebody could be like such a bad guy character, but also genuinely be loved by a lot of people, immediately struck a chord with me, even as a kid. You know. And that toothpick, man, like, tell me you don't feel like a different person when you put a toothpick in your mouth. Like,
oh, you feel the confidence is through the roof.
It's amazing the journey that Scott Hall went through from being in the AWA in the mid to late 80s with the lumberjack mustache. He's a legit 6'4", 270. He's a huge man.
he would only
And
look small next to Kevin Nash. Like,
Right?
only looks small next to Kevin Nash. And then you double down, you bring him into WWE during the New Generation when all the gimmicky characters were coming around, your Doink the Clowns, your Mantars, your Max Moons, you bring in Razor Goldust, Razor Ramon, and you shave his mustache, you grow his hair out, you make it greasy, and you turn him into this Tony Montana style character that just goes ahead and transcends professional wrestling to the point where when he goes anywhere else, WCW, TNA, which is, it's just back, and, he goes anywhere else and he's still the bad guy. And you can't go backwards because you have to keep the voice. You have
Yep.
to keep the Tony Montana voice, otherwise everybody gonna think the gimmick is terrible.
man, yeah, he changed the game. I mean, for his contributions, ladder matches,
Yep.
Crow Sting, like, come on, because the
Yeah,
Sting
that's
going
right.
Crow was his idea.
he
I
came
remember
up with the crow thing.
Sting was talking about that. They were in the back room, and Sting was like, "I got to figure something out," and he was like, "No, do the crow, man." And he was like, "What?"
Yeah,
And what an amazing contribution! Like, change the face of wrestling.
So I was born in the 80s. I watched a lot of wrestling in the 90s.
Mm.
And I mostly knew Scott from coming over and doing the NWO thing. I thought it was real. Like 100%. I was like, yo, they are invading. This is insane. So as an adult, to go back and watch his earlier stuff at the AWA, like you were talking about, where he's even bigger, you
he's
know?
bigger, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like he was drinking a lot of beer on his days off when he was in WCW. Back then, he was huge. And the mustache, like, I had no idea. I was like, who's this guy that looks like Scott Hall's older brother? You know?
Exactly.
Well, what's interesting is, like, I remember seeing Scott Hall and Jerry Springer like one time, and he was like motivating the kids, and it's kind of like, it ain't about how many times you get knocked down, it's about how many times you get back up.
Yeah, they
And like
always
the
say
crowd just roars, just clapping. Like,
he was
That's
the only
right.
guy that
That's
could
right.
walk.
He was on Jerry Springer. Oh man, you're
I used
right.
to always say he was the only guy that could wear 15 gold chains through the hood and walk out without a scratch on him. They loved him. Everybody loved him, man.
Absolutely. It's interesting when he lived here in Atlanta, he was at DDP's house and we were doing yoga at the house and everything. He even kind of kept the gimmick in, like, the gimmick was alive. And it's interesting that a lot of these guys that came in right towards like the death of kayfabe, they still keep it to this day. Like even Jake the Snake would kind of
Yeah, man.
keep the kayfabe thing alive. I remember one time we're on a yoga mat and we're kind of cooling down and he's talking about, he's like, we're gonna go get the tattoo with Dylan, and I'm gonna get a snake all the way up down around my arm, around my back, and the head of the snake is gonna be here, and then I'm gonna open my
oh my
hand, and there's
God.
gonna be the fangs and the tongue and everything. He never did get that tattoo, but I think he found out it was gonna be like $8,000. But it was wild to think that a lot of these guys, the gimmick is still alive and well,
It's
and
who they
you
are.
love
Man,
You really
I
do. You
get
love
it.
to see it. You
I
love to
get
see
it.
it.
I was shooting for a children's show that I do sometimes earlier, and it's like a very like performance art. I kind of just stay in character the whole time thing, and living it sometimes is easier than jumping back and forth.
Sure.
And
Understandable.
those guys worked so much, you know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Now, I'd like to, since you're an actor, I'd like to ask you a question before we move on. People like Daniel Day-Lewis, who are
Okay.
phenomenal actors, they're method actors. You know, when he was shooting Lincoln, he had to be referred to as Mr. President on set because he just stayed. How mentally exhausting is something like that? Or is it just second nature at some point?
Uh, so first off, I'd say that like I think acting is, forgive me if this is offensive, but I think acting is a little bit like religion. Whatever works for you is fine by me, you
Yeah.
know. Um, I personally have dipped my toe into the method acting thing, and I get it. It's effective. I also think there's something to be said for being able to come to work and do a good job without having to do all that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, guys, when you're on set with Virginia Bitches, we're talking, we're shooting up on the side and on set, and all of a sudden you just turn it on, and you're Jerry, you know, with the yeah, we're gonna go do some shit, you know, this guy, there's no way Abs here is a cop, you know,
Man,
just
you know what? Some characters are easier than others. Jerry's in here somewhere, so
sure.
but no, I know what you mean. And look, I think obviously I'm not going to sit here and talk shit about Daniel Day-Lewis. He's one of the greats, and I super respect his commitment to the craft, and I respect that like he enjoys the artistry of the whole process. But like, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool to hear about Will Smith just showing up and knocking it out of the park on set,
Hell yeah.
being super friendly to everybody.
Mhm.
Like, you know,
Well, I remember Will Smith was saying like he was getting irritated with Jared Leto method acting as the Joker on Suicide Squad. He's like, bro, it's a comic book movie. Chill the fuck out.
I get both sides of that, but let me say, if we're on set and Jared Leto is sending me used condoms and dead rats, I got hands for him. You know, like we're still at work. You know,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Love it.
But I mean,
Well,
like, yeah.
another question that we love to ask on Better Than Broadway is what would be your favorite moment, match, mark out moment for wrestling? What was something where you're just like, what?
okay. The hardest I ever marked out, I think, was when I was growing up playing football. One of my coaches was this guy named Mike Gann, and he played for the Falcons for a while.
Nice.
So guess who else played for the Falcons? Bill Goldberg,
Yep.
right? So when Goldberg is going on his undefeated run in WCW, our football coach convinces his old buddy Bill to come down and watch us practice and sign a bunch of t-shirts for the boys.
Nice.
Dude, and let me tell you, we all lost our minds, man. We were playing bull in a ring, and we actually just called it Goldberg back then. So like uh I think I still have that t-shirt somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just,
Very cool.
I was what was interesting when I was in high school, when I was a high school wrestler, amateur wrestler, not a professional wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was training at this gym up in Sandy Springs up here in Atlanta called Obaki Fight School. And it was known as that's the gym Goldberg trained at, and like he co-owned things like that. And I never saw him, but cool fact, I did meet Walt Weiss of the Atlanta Braves. He was training there. And what was also cool was that you had all these guys, Mark Coleman from the UFC, or actually Pride at the time, Pride
Yes.
in
Right.
Japan. Him and all the old school UFC guys are training there and just whipping ass. And fun story, during the whole time, and I was like, I think I was a junior, senior in high school, and I'm like, I'm gonna wear my area wrestling shirt this time. You know, my name's on the back. It's the area tournament, and there's this guy. His name was Attila. He was on the Hungarian Olympic wrestling team. And he looks at me, he's like, "Oh, you wrestle?" I'm like, "Fuck." Yeah, dude. Like, let's go. And like, I mean, he had telephone poles for legs, like for thighs. And he's like, what kind of wrestling? I'm like,
You can't tell people you wrestle because then you got to
no,
roll with them.
no, you can't. Uh, and he's like, what kind of wrestling? I'm like, freestyle. He's like, okay, sure, whatever this freestyle bullshit is. And I shoot on him, and I'm like, it's honestly the best single leg I've ever gotten because he didn't try to dodge it. And I just like wrapped up on him like a cat, going towards a sink, the claws dug in and everything. And he just flung me off, like, just throw his hips forward, throw me off, and then just proceeded to whip my ass for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Advice: don't go wearing your shit.
Yeah, man, that's why I stopped wearing arm wrestling t-shirts. Because everybody wants to arm wrestle when you have an arm wrestling t-shirt on.
Whoa. Pause right there. Let's talk about this for a second. I totally forgot about this. Gus, you're an arm wrestler as well.
I'm semi-retired from holding hands competitively, but yeah, I used to be the light heavyweight champion of Nevada in a few leagues. Yeah, man, I got paid by ESPN to go sit on the front row of a world tournament. They just wanted some big dudes to cheer, and I'm there, and one of the guys is like, "Hey, when's your match?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm just here to watch." And he's like, "You look like you'd be all right."
Right.
After the tournament, they got me on the table, and they told me I had potential, so I went and trained on my own for a few months. Went to the Nevada tournament, and I ended up like coming in third.
Nice.
And, yeah, dude. And
That's
the team
cool.
was like, "How long you been doing this?" And I was like, "This is my first tournament." And they
right.
were like, "Train
Couple
with
weeks.
us." And I'll have to show you a picture sometime. Other than my coach, I was like one of the smallest people on the team. Like, and I'm not a tiny guy.
No,
You and I have hung out in person. So
yeah. Well, it's crazy because like I've seen, there's like I think an A&E docu-series or something like that about arm wrestling in like upstate Washington. And there's like just guys, like one regular arm, which is like their normal arm, and it's like this jacked arm over here.
Oh yeah, dude, I know a lot of those guys. Yeah, for sure. It's fun, man. My legs started to give out on me, and it was a sport that I knew I'd be able to do into my old age. So even though I don't like super compete anymore, like even on set for Virginia Bitches one day, I ended up arm wrestling like 5 or 6 people and showing everybody how to beat their friends when they got home. It was fun.
Nice. I mean, well, Gus, you're like the biggest guy on set. Like you and me are the two biggest guys on set.
I know,
so
it's funny, like as an actor, I'm in a weird spot. I'm over 6 feet tall, and I'm significantly over 200 pounds. And on a lot of sets, I'm like a giant, unless it's a thing about big people, and then I'm like the littlest one there. If it's about a bunch of big scary guys, like when I was working on Red One with The Rock, it's a bunch of big dudes in prosthetics. I'm the smallest guy there. And then the flip side, I'm doing like Vienna and the Phantoms, and it's got like Dakota Fanning and Zoe Kravitz and Jeremy Allen White, and I'm like a half a foot taller than everybody.
right, everyone's a toothpick.
Yeah.
So Gus, how do you stack up against The Rock, man? Give us the tea on that.
So I have hung out with Dwayne in 2 completely different situations. I got hired to be a drug dealer for an episode of Ballers, and because we were shooting in the casino, it ended up not happening, but I did get to hang out on set that day. And he walks out, he's all business, but he puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, "How we doing, big man?" And I was like, "Ah!" on the inside, but I played it cool on the outside.
As you should.
He's like all of us. He's not quite as tall as you think he is, but he darkens the doorway left to right and fills up the room, like personality wise.
I love it.
Yeah, for sure. And then I got to work with him on Red One. I can't talk about any of the spoilers, but I got to work with him on Red One, and it was interesting to see like where he was at acting wise like 6-7 years ago,
Yeah.
and where he's at now. And it was really cool. It was really cool to see, man.
Now, Red One, is that the one with J.K. Simmons where he's Santa Claus and
Yeah,
he's jacked to shit?
Jackass Santa Claus. Yeah.
Amazing.
They actually shot
I
that
just
at a
watched
perimeter
a
mall.
movie.
Nice.
Yeah, I just watched a movie over the weekend with J.K. Simmons, for which he won a
Whiplash.
supporting actor, Whiplash.
Love that movie.
Good movie.
It's
Yeah.
an incredible movie. And it's wild because J.K. Simmons was Schillinger on the HBO series Oz, and he's basically Schillinger in this movie. And he won an Emmy for Oz, and he won
An
an
Oscar.
Oscar for Whiplash. And I mean, Jesus, that guy is a machine as an
Man,
actor. He's so versatile and he's so goddamn scary.
I love that
Just
you noticed
holy
that.
crap.
I love that you noticed that though, because as an actor, I'm friends with a bunch of actors. So actors have like things in their tool bag that they know they're good at. In every role, you might have to do whatever, but there are those like tried and true things in your tool bag you know you can do if you need to. And when I see my friends who are talented actors do like their go-to moves, their finishers or whatever, if I can use a wrestling analogy,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, damn, if I didn't know this person, I would be even more impressed.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And J.K. Simmons winning awards for both of those. Like, can you imagine if you didn't know that he had done the other thing? You'd be like, wow, where did this come from? Like,
Right.
What's funny, Rob, is you mentioned you watch Whiplash. Like Whiplash came from a short film done by the same director, and I actually watched the short film yesterday. I saw Whiplash years ago when it came out, but I
Yeah.
wanted to. I was like, I'm giving some feedback on a script about someone who's doing a short. I'm like, look at this. Like, this is the short for Whiplash. And I was like, I was taking down memory lanes of like JK just killing it. So what a nice little coincidence.
dude, he's
I
great.
mean,
I love
he
him
was
on Broadway.
running
He's a
people
comedian
over.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of finishers, Gus, um, I know a little bit about your background when you were pro wrestling. But what was your background before pro wrestling?
Okay. You and I talked about this on set. So
Yep.
this is funny. I it's a long story, but when I was in high school, I started doing a little bit of ballet. Um,
By the way,
and
ballet is an ultimate core building exercise. Like,
dude,
Believe it.
you know what? I might have gone to the audition as a joke to begin with, but I'm so glad I stuck around because it made me better at everything. And then I ended up going to school for acting, and I went on an acting scholarship and a partial ballet scholarship. And I continued to dance. And then when I got into wrestling, I was low key able to incorporate some of my ballet experience into wrestling. I used to do a lot of lifts. That
sure.
was how that was why I was good at ballet. They were like, "Hey, can you pick this girl up?" And I was like, "This girl right here." So like I started doing some of these moves, and like it's really hard at this point in professional wrestling to do something that people haven't seen before.
Sure.
I I I'm sure somebody's done it before. None of us had ever seen it before. But I had this little move that I would do where if you weighed less than like 190 pounds, I could punch you in the back and then pick you up like a pizza with one hand, which is low key just a ballet lift,
Sure.
and then walk out from under you and drop you. And it looked nasty, but you're in control of the whole thing, other than getting dropped. And it was really impressive. And then they'd be like, "Hey, how'd you come up with this?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, when I was going to acting school on a ballet scholarship." And they're like, "Okay, don't tell anybody that part." uh, but that was a lot of fun. But my finisher, I straight up just stole from Mortal Kombat. My character I was just myself. I was just an exaggerated blowhard actor. Um, I'd be in there talking about, my Hollywood agent and I were talking the other day,
hmm
and my Hollywood agent turns to me and they're like, "You know what? Wrestling just isn't the same anymore." And I said, "You're right. They need me." And that gets so much heat with the boys. Like they immediately hate you. So I was basically just like a shitty Johnny Cage.
Right.
So with the ballet background, I would literally just do a split and punch somebody in the
Punch
dick.
me.
And I don't look like I could do that. So people would be like, whoa.
Shocked.
But yeah, man, it was fun. It was fun.
Based
I love it.
on based on that, if you could work anybody, who would it be?
Man, you would think that I would have thought about that before.
Okay.
So I like playing the big man, but I'm not actually that big. I'm like, my IMDb says I'm 6'2", 4 knee surgeries later. I ain't 6'2" anymore. But I kind of would like to be able to throw somebody around like I was a really big guy. So like, since I'm a mic guy, curveball answer, put me in the ring with Enzo.
Oh
Oh,
shit.
man.
I would
Wow,
love
I
to
like that a
rap
lot.
battle him. I would love to riff back and forth, and I could throw that dude all the way into the audience.
That's so, dude, that would be like some straight up Keith Lee shit right now. Like when he would launch like Adam Cole into the audience, like you could just lawn dart Enzo.
Yeah, man.
That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Just line him up and let him go off the ropes.
Nice.
I did
love
just
it.
have to wrestle somebody who was significantly smaller than me, and it was a lot of fun. I worked on that new Queen of the Ring movie that's coming out, the
Okay.
Mildred Burke biopic, and I
Mildred
can't
Burke.
talk about any of the spoilers, but I did get to wrestle Mildred Burke.
Nice.
You know, who's about, like, people say half my size. I legitimately think she's half my size.
Nice.
That's
Uh,
the Elle Fanning movie.
The actress playing Mildred was Felicity on Green Arrow.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I had heard that. I had heard that, like for a while there, Charlotte Flair and Liv Morgan and a couple of the WWE women were attached,
Yo,
and I
there
don't
were
think they
there were
are
workers
anymore.
on set. I can't talk
Okay.
spoilers, but yeah,
Well,
for
no,
sure.
no, we would never
I
want to
mean,
break your
you can
NDAs,
see
but
on IMDb that some of them are on there. I'm not breaking any
cool.
NDAs. Jim Cornette was there, which was sick.
Right on.
Big fan. So
Yeah. So for those of our fans, our 7 fans that don't know who Mildred Burke is, she was the one of the very early pioneers of women's wrestling, and she is the woman for whom the NWA Women's Championship is named. They call it the Burke, um, and it's currently held by who's that? Who is that? Billy Sparks. She beat Camille. Who is that holds the NWA Women's Championship right now?
and I'll look it up.
that
I feel
sounds
bad that I
amazing.
don't know that because I was just watching it the other day, and it's Kenzie Page.
Nice. I love all of that for Billy Corgan, by the way. Like,
Yeah, it's very
you know,
cool.
people
I'm
can
not
argue
crazy
about how
about
he's
what
running
happened.
it, but
Not crazy about what happened at Samhain, but and hopefully they didn't lose their TV deal over that. But NXT is going to be on CW instead of NWA Power apparently. So what are we
yeah,
doing?
we'll see.
I mean, the CW is still a market. It's still got, it's a channel on my TV right now.
Yo,
So
Yeah,
respectfully though, and this comes from, look, I got friends on CW. That network hasn't made money in like 10 years, right?
I wouldn't think they have, like, but
That's
they're
not
still
even me
on.
talking shit. Like, I actually don't think they have.
right. So like your biggest shows on CW ever have been One Tree Hill, Arrow, the Gilmore Girls, and probably Smallville. Like those are the four biggest shows that have been on your thing. And to have pro wrestling on there is fantastic, but let's step back here.
But I'm sure pro wrestling on there is the operating cost is a lot cheaper.
Yeah, having Stephen
Well,
Amell on Arrow does not get you your wrestling fix.
No.
Like, you need actual wrestling also.
sure, but I'm thinking based on CW being a broadcast channel that's in probably 100 million homes nationwide, versus USA Network, which is probably in 50 million homes worldwide. You're doubling your fan base, but they did the same thing with Fox. SmackDown's on a Friday night, the ratings aren't what they wanted them to be, which is why SmackDown's going back to USA, because Fox said the return on investment was trash.
Man, I know
So
people
how do
think,
we feel? How do we feel about a broadcast network having a pro wrestling show, Gus?
well, first of all, I know people think Friday night's a big night for TV, but I disagree. I think it's the only night of the week people got other shit to do.
I agree with you 100%.
It's not.
So I
Put them on
the fact
Thursday.
that SmackDown has done as well as it has on Friday is actually impressive to me.
Well, is it just people recording it and watching it later? I mean, because that's what I do.
I mean, yeah, I think that's what most of us do, right? Man, I think I almost think night of the week is more important than what network you're on. Honestly, I think whoever can put them not opposite another big show, but still get them in a lot of homes is the answer.
No, I mean, I agree with you.
50 million versus 100 million, that's a huge difference. So
yeah,
you're like, you got to take a swing at 100 mil, but
I mean, now that well, there's Thursday night football. Thursdays are kind of going to be dominated, but that's an Amazon Prime thing. My point being is like, the show Firefly, that was huge, or not huge, could have been huge, but rabid fan following,
Rabid fan base.
It debuted on Friday nights, and it's like on Fox with like shitty budget, which gave them the shitty effects, and it's kind of like, well, the show's not doing too well. It's like, well, you set it up for failure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so SmackDown doing as good as it does on Fridays, kudos.
Yeah, impressive. Yeah, I mean, like, what do? You can't take an earlier time because you got to wait for people to get home from work. You go too late, you lose the East Coast. And yeah, like you mentioned, during football season, there's a lot of overlap between football fans and wrestling fans. So you're going to lose live viewers.
I mean, it's almost a safer bet, because I know AEW, they're doing Saturdays now, but now you have college football on Saturdays. So
yeah.
And then, any pay-per-view that's on a Sunday, like, you're going to be competing with Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, and you know what? I have to say, I remember when wrestling would show on like Saturday mornings, and there's something about the sun being down when it's happening that just makes it better.
Oh, yeah.
So like I don't think a Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon show are really gonna do well. You're just gonna be in the same situation, people watching it later, if they watch it.
Yeah.
Is main event still a thing?
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's the main events on Hulu and streaming on Peacock. But so I've got a client who's a dear friend of mine, and used to work with Ring of Honor. And when Sinclair Broadcasting sold the rights to Ring of Honor to Bally's to air, it aired it in different markets. It aired at like 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 a.m., 12 a.m.
Yeah,
And it's
there was
just
a
like,
time in my
how
life
are
where
you
every
getting?
hotel room was showing Ring of Honor when I got there.
Yeah. So how are you building a market share when you're on a bunch of different channels and it's different times a day? It's bananas. How do you do? I mean, how do you keep a fan base when you're preempted by college football or college baseball or something crazy?
I think that you hit the nail on the head. That is a brilliant example of how to make a bunch of diehard fans and not make a bunch of money.
Although I do remember,
I don't know if they're taking notes on this podcast, but that's our advice.
They might, yeah. No, I remember as a kid, like, I could tune in, yeah, like Saturday mornings, 11 a.m., and there's like some sort of WCW show going on. But I also remember like tuning in to like my antenna bullshit scramble TV, adjust the antennas. Okay, cool. I got a clear picture. Not talking about porn. Thank you, Rob. Don't even. But but I remember seeing like a 1 a.m. broadcast of like some sort of WCW thing, like Steamboat versus Earthquake. I'm like, shit, this is great. I'm up late. Pro wrestling's on. Life is good.
Kids today don't know those scramble channels. You could still hear the audio on a lot of them. So we would just listen to wrestling pay-per-views when we couldn't afford them.
Did the exact same thing.
Yeah, it'd be like listening on the radio, and every now and then you'd get a little bit of a titty, and you'd be like, "Oh, that's that guy's peck." You know what I mean? It was just like Channel 99. You hear the audio.
You know what you're talking about.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, but everybody kept the volume down on those channels because you'd be getting in trouble.
Well, but no, but to that point, like you could get scrambled pro wrestling pay-per-views. For instance, I remember like I set up my parents' room where I could do that, and it was the match where it was Diesel and Shawn Michaels versus Yokozuna and Owen Hart for the tag team titles or the championship titles. Like Shawn Michaels was Intercontinental and Diesel was world champion.
Man, not to be a downer, but me and my dad both have vivid memories of watching when Owen fell. And I mean, obviously we didn't see the fall, but we were listening to the audio. We heard Jim Ross be like, something terrible's happened, you know, blah 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 blah. And like, you know, I'll never forget that experience. I know it was a terrible tragedy, but you know, like my dad and I share that memory, which is kind of cool. You know, and that's the same thing. Listening, like they told the stories so well that you could just listen and still know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and that's their job, is to narrate what's going on, you know, as a commentator, as a good commentator. And what's funny is, to that exact point of, I think it was last summer or 2 summers ago, Rob, is when you, me and Justin, we went to the AEW show with my buddy Jake. And it was the shark cage match where the Jericho Appreciation Society was locked in the shark cage. And you know, Jericho's fighting in the ring.
Worst.
So we went to the show.
I think he's hilarious. All right.
No, we love Jericho. We love Jericho.
You love Jericho.
Yeah, I was at the Festival of Friendship. I got to see that happen.
There are some gimmick matches that are just never go ahead, John. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah,
ahead,
yeah.
Jeff.
No, well, so it was yeah, we love Jericho, but like we were at that show, and it's like it's just there's such an element of you don't know what's happening without the commentary. And we didn't, you know, they're like, oh, we assume they're talking about the guys in the cage that are suspended. Jake Hager's are there doing pull-ups, you know, and so then after the show, me and Jake went back to my place, and it's like, dude, let's watch the show again with the commentary. And then he was like, yeah, let's do it. You got something to drink? And I was like, yeah, I've got a whole liter of Fireball.
Oh no.
We drank the entire liter watching the rerun of AEW.
You did not.
Your breath is still minty.
Dude.
You lived to tell about it. That's what's impressive.
Surprised.
How are you alive?
That was one of the
God.
My hangover had a hangover. Like,
but did you understand, despite how drunk you were, way more what was going on? Because
I did. I knew. Oh, now the cage is coming out. They're somehow escaping. You know, I could find out what was going on. It was great.
Okay, you mentioned gimmick matches. I want to interject real quick. Every time I get a chance to talk to wrestling people, I had this idea for a match, and stop me if it's already a thing. But you know how we have all these matches where it's like roll up after roll up, 1 2 1 2 1 2. What if that mattered? What if it was cumulative counts, right? So the first, say it's like 21, but we'll make it 11. First person to 11 counts wins. You can't go past 3. So if you pin somebody, 1 2 3, right? You pin them again. 1 2 3. They pin you. You pin them again. 1 2 3. Roll up. 1 2. Roll up. 1. So it's like the first person to a decided number wins the match. So every little roll up wins. So a scrappy little wrestler could get a few quick ones on somebody. I think it levels the playing field. It makes it a mind game more than just a physical test.
I think that's cool as
That's
shit.
fucking
I've
cool
never even
shit.
thought of that. I love it.
Right? Okay, cool. I'm glad you guys like that.
Make it happen, people. Come on,
Yeah,
send it,
yeah.
send it in.
I've been pitching my promoter buddies on it. I'm trying to make it
I
happen.
will I will say I think that's a fantastic segue. AEW just announced on Dynamite the inaugural AEW Continental Classic. And it's a round robin tournament with 12 wrestlers, and Bryan Danielson has been announced. And the only thing I could think of was Danielson last year saying, I want to go do the G1 in Japan. And Tony Khan saying, we got G1 at home. So now you have this tournament, and it's cool because it's kind of what the original G1 format was. It used to be 6 and 6, and the top two go into a semifinal. The two winners of the A and B block go to the final. Japan actually expanded theirs to 24 this year. They had A, B, C, and D blocks. So that was cool as shit. But yeah, man, the winner is going to be crowned at the World's End pay-per-view on December 30th. Um, Bryan Danielson broke his orbital bone 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and
Yeah,
now
he's out,
he's
right?
he's wrestling. Not only is he wrestling in this tournament, which he might win, but then he's going to turn around and go to Wrestle Kingdom 5 days later and work Okada. I guess
Shenanigans.
maybe to go put like a little mask on him.
He's gonna have like the RoboCop helmet, just like put it over his head to where he's like
Yeah.
this.
They should just get a
So
big jacked dude to dress up like him and like wrestle for it.
yeah. So Ryan, I don't know if you remember this or not. I'm sure Gus does because he loves classic wrestling from the '90s. But there was a moment where the Undertaker broke his orbital, and they put him in this gray like devil mask, and he worked for like 3 months in that mask, and it was just amazing. And there was another wrestler who broke their orbital bone. I cannot remember who it was, but they were wearing a mask for quite a bit. It might have been, I think it was Cody Rhodes. It was Cody Rhodes when he was
Yep.
wearing the
He was
mask.
wearing like the
So,
NBA orbital protector,
huh?
almost like the kind that they wear in the NBA.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
Rip Hamilton wore the black mask, and that's what gave them the idea to do that with Cody. But thoughts about Danielson returning less than he's going to be wrestling 5 weeks removed from breaking this bone in his face.
Okay, well, let me ask you this.
Talk to him.
Realistically, there's a saying in it comes to fighting in MMA that if you walk out into the fight at 100%, you didn't train hard enough.
I get it.
So that being said, how often has Danielson wrestled at 100%?
I respect that. I also think it's weird. I've never seen a man who claims to be so happy at home who wants to go and kill himself at work so bad. Look, if he's medically cleared and they say it's safe, what do I know? I'm not a doctor. I think it's crazy. I've broken my leg 4 times. I've broken my shoulder. I've broken my wrist. I've broken my ankle. I've broken the arch of my foot. I've cracked my jaw. I've lost teeth. And all of those things take time to heal from. I don't
all
care.
this happened in ballet, right?
Yeah, all in ballet. Ballet and theater, man. But like you have to give the body time to heal. It's an amazing thing. It can heal. But I think that's personally nuts. And what are we all just supposed to act like we don't know his orbital bone is messed up? If I'm a real fighter fighting him, the first thing I'm going to do is hit him in the face.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
I just remember
a lot of everyone else in the tournament to wrestle him.
I mean, because they got to be careful. Like they got to be a little bit more soft and make sure they don't, accidentally hit it.
Yeah, dude, all these people who get to wrestle with Sting right now, what a dream come true. But what if you're the person who hurt Sting?
Right.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
Like somebody's going to be the person who kills Ric Flair in the ring. Rick wants to die in the ring, and we're all playing hot potato to see who's the asshole stuck in the ring with him when it happens.
I don't want to be that guy.
No.
I mean, good Lord.
I know that
I
that's a
mean,
dark. I'm not saying anything he hasn't said out loud. You know what I mean?
right. But with Ric Flair being 71 and Sting being 63, and it's just kind of like, mm, uh,
Dude, for a
why?
63-year-old, the guy
Why do
can
you
go,
want
but like,
this?
why? Yeah,
Why
yeah.
do
But
you
the
want this?
well, Sting's having his final match, and I believe it will be. He's like, I'm done. No, I'm good. I'm done.
Yeah,
Instead of Ric Flair retiring 17 times
man.
to match a
Okay,
17-time world championships.
we're talking about
Well,
people
Sting's got a
retiring.
whole year.
How do y'all feel about? I feel like I'm gonna catch shit for even bringing this up. How do y'all feel about Paul White's appearance recently?
Look stiff.
Dude, I know bad knees, and that man should not be wearing a wrestling singlet right now. You know what I mean?
It's a well, I think there was a picture came out of Kevin Nash a couple of weeks ago. It was like that his legs were like mangled from all the
But then
wrestling and shit.
but then he had all the he went down to South America and got all that stem cell stuff done, and like,
Oh yeah,
dude, Kevin's legs look fine now. He looks like he's 50 again.
Yeah,
Um,
he's doing
like
good.
he's making me want to go get my knees done.
I
Um,
mean for Paul White, like come on, we're all competitors, we're all entertainers. Like if you feel you've got it and you've got a chance to go back out there and do it, I mean, who am I to tell you no?
there was just a better way.
Yeah.
They could have had him in street clothes and him just clobber somebody, and then we wouldn't have been able to tell.
True.
You know, there was. I love the stuff that AEW does. I usually think there was a better way to do it.
Hmm.
I would agree with that. I listen to sporadically. I used to listen all the time, but now I only listen maybe once or twice a week. But Busted Open Radio comes on, and I always try to listen on Thursday because Bully Ray and LaGreca always talk about, you know, what AEW does well and what AEW could be doing better. And the could be doing better is almost always a bigger topic of discussion because wrestling fans love to shit on wrestling.
Which is a shame because I think
It's they're worse than Star Wars fans.
yes, but we need a two-party system. Wrestling cannot survive on one mega company. You know what I mean? Like it's so much better that way. You whether you're the good guys or the bad guys or whatever, there's got to be a foil. And AEW has stepped up in a huge way, and that's undeniable, but they are not Pepsi to WWE's Coke right now.
Ooh.
They could be.
It's more like an RC cola.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like it's
God,
in
it's an
the mix.
RC
It's in the
cola.
conversation.
Kroger brand cola.
We're pulling for them. You know, I got friends who work for AEW. I wish them all the best, but it is not. It's not on that level yet, and that's not to say that it won't be. I hope that they get there. I think
I
that it
hope
would
so
be
too.
better for the whole industry for that to happen.
So Gus, let me ask you this, and I this is something I just thought of. I didn't send you the question ahead of time. When I DM my D&D games, once per session, like once per game night, I give my players a chance to do a flashback or what's called a cut to, where they can go back and change something they did in the past, somewhat minor. What would be a cut to for AEW that you would change for the better?
Um, I think that firing CM Punk is insane. I think all of the things that people have done in wrestling and kept their jobs, like Jimmy Snuka killed people and got to keep his job. Um, and I get that people got beef with the way the guy behaves. I'm not saying that isn't true, but like people talking about your promotion is something that you can buy it, but it's a lot cheaper to not buy it. And when you have him working for you, you don't have to buy it. I mean, they're paying him a lot, or were paying. I guess shit, they're still paying him a lot, even though Phil's done, but he's still getting paid. Um, but I don't know, man. Like I'm not saying I don't understand why they did it. I'm just like, that's nuts. you got to just suck it up and go to work with this guy. He's making you money. Like, but that's just me, man.
Gus, does CM Punk show up at Survivor Series? Yes or no?
Um, I hope so. I have a weird relationship with Punk. I was not watching wrestling by the time he came around. I had a renaissance of wrestling about the time that he left. So I completely missed the CM Punk era. I have friends who he's their favorite. I didn't know him from that. But I got to work on season 2 of Heels, and I got to work with him a little bit. And he was super cool, nice guy. And then I got to go back and watch some of the stuff he was doing with AEW. I got to see that happening, and I saw how excited people were when he came back, right? And I had not seen anybody be that excited in a long time. I mean, like, it gets close when The Rock comes back, but it's not that level. I think like for me, the last time I saw people get that excited was when Hogan heel turned. And that was a very different kind of excitement. I was watching when that happened. I cried. You know what I mean? I was that little
I cried, then I bought the t-shirt.
dude. Yeah, I had a Hulk Hogan like suitcase that I took to sleepovers. You know, I was like, no. But you know, here I am, the guy in my 30s wearing the NWO shirt, so it worked out. You know what I mean?
Love it. Okay.
But yeah, I think firing Phil is crazy.
Well, it's you can't argue it. He's a draw, and like he's good for your company. You know, any press is good press. You know, good, bad, or ugly.
You know, it's I think completely different reasons, but like a similar niche. Logan Paul in WWE. You know, like super divisive.
We were talking about that last week.
Be there,
yeah.
But there are people who are only watching because of that guy.
Travis, we went into a deep dive with Logan Paul WWE and Travis Kelce Taylor Swift last week about this it was very compelling podcast division.
It was compellingly fueled as well by whiskey.
Man,
So
it was 100% fueled by whiskey.
I'll have to go back and listen to that one. Logan, look, I didn't like him as a person beforehand, but like the he's a good heel.
Dude, he's an athlete. He goes out there and he gives it his all. Like, respect.
Him with wrestling, everybody's like, he hasn't paid his dues, and I'm like, well, I don't know what you guys want us to say because people already want to see him. It's like when Rob Van Dam started doing comedy. You know, I used to do comedy in Vegas, and Rob had a show in Vegas for a little while, and some of my comedian friends were like, why does this asshole get his own show when he's just getting started in comedy? And Rob would be like, I don't know, man, be a world famous wrestler for 30 years first. Yeah. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like,
your track record speaks for itself. You know, it's.
But I feel like the fact that Rob Van Dam is high most of the time, and he has those like sunglasses on where you can kind of see his eyes. He's kind of like got that Mitch Hedberg vibe going on, where it's just kind of like, whoa, yeah.
Dude, I
Chef.
I love Rob.
Yeah. Chef, same question for you. If you could just make a minor tweak, what would your minor tweak be?
It's a very good question. And I was not and having asked it, I was not prepared to answer it.
He hit you with that Uno reverse.
He totally the Uno reverse card. Damn.
That was the Uno reverse card. Gotcha, bitch.
You know, this is what I would do. And this tugs at my heartstrings. I would throw the cut 2 down, and Owen Hart would not have done the pile driver to Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Ooh.
What would the world be like if we had more Stone Cold?
Does Austin wrestle differently if he doesn't have
to
be so careful?
Right?
Yeah.
Does he become the bionic redneck?
what, you know.
I don't know, man. That's the thing. You just never know. I mean, there's so many things that are impactful in pro wrestling, and I don't know. I feel like if I could go back and change something, there's two things I would do. There's one that's recent and one that's not. Um, I'd go back to 2001, and instead of having Shane McMahon buying WCW in kayfabe, I would have had Paul Heyman buy WCW in kayfabe and make ECW and WCW that together thing that even though they did it months later on television, it would have just been there in the immediate. And I feel like I'd have kept those brands separate. I'd have kept WCW. I'd have kept WWE. I'd have had them. I'd have still had the two shows.
Dude, that's pretty
You know,
brilliant. You merge ECW and WCW and call it WeCW.
then yeah. Or you just kill off ECW and just WCW.
With a hardcore
Um,
division. Yeah. Like
yeah. If you ever watch the rise and fall of ECW documentary, um,
only like once a month. Yeah.
Paul Heyman said it dead ass. He said that ECW was the biggest victim of the Monday Night Wars because all the luchadors, Rey Mysterio and Jericho and all and Sandman and all these characters, Raven, you know, all these people started going to WWE and WCW. The Dudleys went over to WWE for the big money. So it's just like they got poached so hard that it was just like, well, shit, just pick one to go be a part of and, run the thing. I mean, obviously, maybe AEW doesn't exist. Impact Wrestling sure as shit doesn't exist if you do that. So,
WCW and WWF during the Monday Night Wars, it was a very Joker and Batman situation.
Mm.
Like, you
I
think all
love
you
that.
got to do is, yeah, you think all you got to do is get rid of the other one. And then the second the other one is gone, it's like,
You
Never
realize you
more.
need each other.
that's why
We
this
need
was
each
so
other.
interesting. Is even when WCW was getting, and look, by the end, WCW was pretty weak, but it was still like a viable. It's weird because you don't know what you got till it's gone. Even when WCW sucked, it was so much better than a lot of other things. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to offend anybody.
Well, if Russo hadn't tried to kill WCW intentionally, we might have a different story too. But I digress.
What do y'all think about the what's the rumor that Vince sent him over there on purpose?
I think that's true. I'm sorry, but I do.
They cover that in Dark Side of the Ring, actually.
It's a totally reasonable. That's one of those conspiracy theories where the more I hear, the more I'm like,
AWA. AW. See where I'm going with this?
okay.
Vern Gagne was starting to run shows in Florida with AWA, and he had Terry Bollea, he had Hulk Hogan as his big draw, and out of nowhere, he tells Vern that he's going to be at the show, and like instead of going to the show, Vince secretly flew Hogan to Stamford to Madison Square Garden to do a show, and that was kind of the beginning of Hulk Hogan in WWF because he didn't really have a contract. Vince promised Vern that he would do right by him, and he didn't. So it's just would Vince stoop so low as to subterfuge a company like WCW, his competition? You're damn right he would.
No chance.
Yeah, Vince is a sociopath.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, look, the guy has accomplished probably more than I ever will, but like, what is that old saying about like a sailor recognizes another sailor? I'm a little crazy. That motherfucker is crazy.
Ooh.
Anybody who can buy a company from their father in 1981 for $1 million and sell it in 2023 for $9 billion is a sociopath,
And
but a
wasn't that
genius.
the first million was mostly profits from the company he was buying from him?
I know.
Like, what? I'm trying to be one of these billionaires. I, with a simple loan of $10 million from my father, was
And my father, a $10 million loan that my father gave me. It's perfect. I do the things I do. Big hands, small hands, big hands, small hands, big hands, small hands.
like raccoon-sized hands, right?
Oh
They're
God.
beautiful hands. They're beautiful hands, whether they're small or big. I just move them around so they look bigger.
You can't focus on any particular one, but they're just going.
They're coming at you. They're coming at the screen, so they look big.
Man, all right, y'all are talking about hands. I remember when I was a little kid, I got to meet Shaq, and it was like putting my hand inside of a catcher's mitt.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Right? Lex Luger, his you know, he was kicking around the same area I live in back in the 90s. He was at like a baseball game when I was a kid. I got to say hey to him. Same deal. Huge hands, right? Like scary big hands. I thought those were the biggest hands I was ever going to see. And then I got to go to an arm wrestling tournament with Jeff Dabe. Do y'all know who Jeff Dabe is?
No.
I know the name.
He's a wrestler. He's an arm wrestler who was born with arms that are like 40 to 60%.
I do know this man.
Should be. He has 6-inch fingers.
Yeah.
Ryan,
It's like a bear claw.
dude, I don't have small hands. I can barely grab his thumb.
Good Lord.
Like, and people want to argue about whether or not he should be allowed to arm wrestle. I'm like, what are you talking about? All he should be allowed to do is arm wrestle. This man was put on the planet to arm wrestle. You're all just cowards. What do you mean?
He's all natural. Come on, you gotta let it go.
Dude, yeah. He looks like Wreck-It Ralph. And I mean that in the sweetest way possible.
No, I know exactly the guy you're talking about. Yeah, now that you mention it. Let him play. Let him play. The show must go on.
What do you mean? They're like, we should put him in the disabled division. I'm like, why? What? He's fighting everybody in the regular division. What do you mean?
maybe you guys need to go to the disabled division.
Yeah, right, dude. The guy is like 5'7" and weighs like 260 pounds and is not overweight. It's just all on his arms.
Shit. Just telephone poles.
Yeah, dude, he has the arms of an 8-foot tall man, but he's like 5'7".
Well,
that was my mini rant about my friend Jeff.
On that note, shall we wrap it here, gentlemen?
Yeah. I mean, Gus, you've done it all. You've been a worker, you've been a ballet dancer, an accomplished actor, comedian.
Man, I'm trying. What is it? Hunter S. Thompson said you don't get any points for turning this body back in good condition.
Correct. I think that's the closing line of the night.
I love it.
I got an empty glass, but Hunter S. Thompson. Anyway,
No,
probably would have.
Yeah, Gus,
he probably would have imagined there was whiskey in here and just kind of done it anyway.
Pounding Guinnesses.
Yeah, I saw a 104-year-old woman the other day, and they asked her what the secret to long life was, and pardon my language, but she said drink a Guinness every day and don't marry a cunt. So you guys can blur that out if you need to.
No, I'm making that our social media post.
I'm trying to catch up on my Guinness every day.
So on that note, drink a Guinness every day, people, and don't marry a cunt.
That's right.
I've said that word maybe 10 times in my whole life, and I just said it on your podcast. So congratulations.
I think that was the first time. Usually, if I use that word, I use the acronym of "See you next time" or "See you next Tuesday." So for you, Gus, I'll do it.
All right.
Guys, check us out on Apple Podcast. YouTube is big. Spotify. I'll link Gus's IMDb page in the notes and to the Virginia Bitches, which we're making together. And yeah, let us know what you like. Other than that, Gus, thank you for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love wrestling and I like talking bullshit, so this was fun.
Come back anytime.
For the chef and the actor, happy wrestling, everybody.
Hit the music.